by you. Oh yeah, oh my darling, stand by me. No matter who you are, no matter where you go in life, you gon' need somebody to stand by you. No matter how much money you got, all the friends you got, you gon' need somebody to stand by you. When the night has come and the land is dark and that moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't shed one tear just as long as your people come and stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand, stand by. Come on, stand by me. Yeah. Oh, well, that sky that we look upon, well, she tumble and fall on the mountains. They should tumble into the sea. I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Please stand by me. Stand by me. And darling, darling, stand.
Oh man, I could listen to that all day. You know, those are really cool songs. Those collections are called Play for Change. And if you go to Play for Change, they got these people from all over the world that contribute music to these songs, and somehow they record them all in the various countries and they string them all together, and it's really cool. So Play for Change, go check that out. Good morning, Stevie the Guide here in Kerrville, Texas, on the banks of the Guadalupe River. And yes, Don, I'm still here. Don, the Truth Conductor. You know, I know things have gotten out of hand when Don, the Truth Conductor, has to contact me and say, hey, why are you not broadcasting? All right. And Don, the Truth Conductor, he does these cool videos up in Washington, D.C., and he watches mine. If you'll recall, if you've been listening to some of these that I do, right about the time the coronavirus started up, I didn't record for almost a month. You know, I sort of used it as an excuse to quit. And I had quit doing this. And this guy named Don, the Truth Conductor, contacted me, a stranger I'd never seen or heard from before, and said, hey man, you know, why are you not broadcasting? And so I've been going through a slump here. I haven't been on for about 2 weeks, and you know, if I was in military basic training, they'd have certainly kicked me out by now. But fortunately for me, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, you know, there's nobody here to kick me out except me. All right. And so I can use all the excuses I want, but ultimately that's the way it goes. You know, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it's you that's going to feel bad. And somebody told me the other day, you're gonna feel bad anyway. You're gonna be in pain anyway. Whether you go to the gym and work out or you don't go to the gym and work out, you're going to be in pain from doing or not doing, all right? And the pain of not doing, if you're tuned in and, if you have a vision and you're not working towards it, then you're going to feel pain if you're not, all right? Yeah, it's painful to get up and do stuff you don't want to do. And sometimes I get up and I don't want to do this. But the problem is that momentum builds upon itself. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do a little bit every day, then it becomes easier to fall back and not do it. And I can tell you from personal experience. But Don, the Truth Conductor, thank you once again. I finally dragged my ass out of bed to do this one more time. And today is a little bit of a celebration because today is the 75th hour that I've done this live stream. And it may not mean anything to billions of you out there, but it means something to me just to get up and do it. And the reason is because I believe that my goal has been to do 100 hours of this live stream. And I decided to do that and set that goal because I knew if I did this 100 times, that it would change me. And I can assure you it has already. This is the 75th time, so I'm 3/4 of the way to my goal of doing 100 one-hour shows. And although I haven't done them, I could have been done by now if I'd actually done them 5 days a week like I was supposed to. But I didn't do it, but better late than never. And if you fall back, if you fall off the wagon, well, you need to get back on and keep trucking, keep trying. And I'm going to go back. I will tell you, besides Don, the Truth Conductor, there's another guy named David Goggins who has also been helping me. And I mentioned him on one of my other shows. David Goggins, of course, is the amazing ultra athlete who wrote this book called Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. That is an amazing book. And I haven't gotten through it all, but if you get that book, get the audio version because there's a lot of commentary in between the chapters between David Goggins' ghostwriter and himself. So you actually hear live commentary from David Goggins himself if you get the audio book. And it is absolutely gut-wrenching of what this guy went through. This guy wanted to be a Navy SEAL, all right? And that was just for openers. He failed a Navy SEAL training twice and had to go a third time. He went through it 3 times. He went through what they call Hell Week 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. If you have any idea, military basic training in and of itself has got to be hard. If you join the Army or the Navy, they're going to put you through some shit. It's going to be difficult. And your average person right now would find it difficult just to do that. And I think that's like in the Army, I want to say it's 13 weeks of really difficult physical training and harassment from instructors and all that. But when you go through Navy SEAL basic training, what you have there is a team of the most highly trained military instructors whose sole purpose in life for that 6 months is to make you quit, all right? To make you quit. And they are going to trip you up. I remember that movie, Officer and a Gentleman, with Lou Gossett Jr. and Richard Gere. And at the beginning of the movie, when the recruits first get there to basic training in the Navy, he says, I'm going to use any means available, fair or unfair, to trip you up. All right. And that's his job. All right. And when you have these professional hard ass Navy SEALs, who all of them are Navy SEAls, and they're gonna be your instructors for 6 months, day and night. And they don't get tired because they rotate out. They're chasing you. They're waking you up. They're harassing you. They are highly trained to detect any flaw in your character, any little thing that bothers you and gets inside. And David Goggins talks about that in his book, how they'll occupy your mind. They'll take up residence in your mind and mess with you in so many different kinds of ways. And when they learn more about you and the frailties that you have, whether they're physical or mental or emotional or, with your family or, failures that you had or whatever they can use to mentally beat you down, physically beat you down. I mean, they're professionals. And David Goggins talks about them in his book as if they were the enemy. And even though, hey, we're all on the same side, right? Those instructors in Navy SEAL training were the enemy, right? They were the enemy, and they were hated because every single moment of your waking life, they are harassing you and beating you, trying to make you quit. And a class of 200 men, well, in a matter of weeks will shrink down to about 20, and you've got, just these, 20 or 40 who make it all the way to the end. And if you get injured, you don't get to stay. If you have an injury and you can't make it, you're out. You got to go back to the beginning. And that's what happened to David Goggins, I guess, a couple of times. Blew out his knees and stuff like that. But this guy has the resilience to keep going. It's what the truth conductor tells me. You got to keep going, man. Got to keep going. And even if you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, now you have an ideal in your mind. What keeps you going is the ideal, the vision that you have planted in your brain, as Simon and Garfunkel say, a vision that you planted in your brain. And have you planted one? That is, for many people, including myself, that is one of the more difficult things to do in life, is to decide who you want to be and what exactly you want. And once you get a vision of it, you plant it in your brain. And then you're willing to go through a tremendous amount just to achieve that. So, this David Goggins, man, and I ain't even through it all, but he went through the SEAL training to get this little pin. And I'll tell you something. I always go up to military personnel and thank them for their service. And whatever you think of what the government is doing out there, the men and women of the armed forces deserve our respect. They do. They don't get paid that much, and they most often have a very hard job to try to protect the country and follow the leadership. Regardless of what you think, the individual soldier needs to be thanked, and at least I think they do. And so I always go up and talk to them. But if you ever see a Navy serviceman, and on his, I think it's on their lapel, you see a Trident pen, man, that person deserves tremendous respect, all right? That is a person that is not to be screwed with, all right? Because that Trident pen on their lapel means that they are a Navy SEAL and that they have survived that training. And they spend like many millions of dollars per candidate to put them through so many different exercises with planes, with guns, with, all this different kinds of stuff. And I hope to never be violent in my life, but, I'm glad there's people around that protect me. Anyway, I guess what I want to say is perseverance, just having respect for that type of perseverance. And to have a little bit of it yourself to persevere through hardship, through discouragement, through discomfort like you can't imagine, and persevere towards a goal that you're not even really clear about, but you know generally the direction you want to go in. You must walk in that direction. You must trudge. What is that? That guy, you ever see that movie, A Knight's Tale? I think it had, anyway, A Knight's Tale, whatever that guy's name was. It was a great movie. And there's this, they're walking along the road, these three guys, you know, their knight has died, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. And they come across this dude who's naked. And I can't remember his name either. He's a great actor. Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger is in the movie. He's the star of the show. But then this other guy, you've seen him in a bunch of movies, but he's walking along the road naked. And they say, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Trudging." And they go, "What? Trudging?" And then, yeah, trudging, to trudge, you know. There's the certain amount of pride and honor in trudging forward, trudging through, trudging on. I don't know, these things just come to me. But to trudge forward towards that trident. And reason I mention that trident pen, because it is a symbol of a goal that a man had when he entered that type of difficult training. It was a goal, a vision. He envisioned himself wearing that little trident, having completed a difficult body of work. And I like the notion of a trident. And so the question I would pose to you today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, my question to you is, what is your trident? What pen do you want to wear? Having completed something once you get to the end of the road. That reminds me of a poem I recited at my dad's funeral, and it goes, "When I get to the end of the road, and the sun is set for me, I want no rites in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free?" And it goes on, but we're going to hit the end of this road here. Hey, don't look now, but tick tock, you know, the clock is winding down, and we are getting to the end of this stretch of the road here, all right? And if you're in my age group, you know, you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel already, all right? And so what you gonna do? I heard Richard Pryor gave this famous speech after he had blown himself up, doing freebase cocaine, and was sent to the burn center for about 6 months. And he said when he was in the depths of this cocaine addiction, this big football player named Jim Brown, big old guy, and he said, "What you gonna do? What you gonna do?" And he was like, "Jim, I am a man. I don't know what I'm going to do." And Jim kept saying, "What you gonna do? What you gonna do?" And what you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What is your vision? What's that trident that you want to wear? And what are you gonna do about it today? All right. And what I'm doing about it today, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm sitting here talking to you. All right. And did I really want to do this? No. Especially after I haven't been doing my homework for 2 weeks. I really didn't want to get up and go back to this mental gym here and talk live stream. But I'll tell you another thing that's inspired me, very much inspired me, is that when you do this sort of live stream broadcast, you never know who's watching. You don't have any idea. And, you sort of look for comments and stuff, and you see, different people who are actively watching, but you really don't have any idea who's there. And I was down in Houston. Part of my excuse for not broadcasting the last week and a half or so is because I was down in Houston helping my mom. I sold my mom's house for her, and then I was helping her pack up, and I was hanging around at mom's house, getting pampered and treated like a little kid, so that's where this love-hate relationship comes in with your mom, She loves you and cares for you and all that, but then she tells you how you're doing everything wrong, and you're always going to be that little kid. But anyway, I was down in Houston. I was out of my element. I wasn't at my office here in Kerrville, Texas. And even though I had my computer, I don't feel comfortable broadcasting there. But if you're on an exercise program, it doesn't matter where you are. You have to exercise. And this is my exercise program. And so, but while I was down there, and the point of that Uncle Remus tale is that while I was down there, one of my a lady who's helping my mom pack up and move. She's designing her new apartment. Mom's moving into this cool high-rise apartment out of the house, and so this gal came over. She's my little sister's friend, and we got to talking. We were having a glass of wine, and she said, "Oh yeah, I've watched your live stream. It's really cool. I think it's really neat." And I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I've maybe seen her once or twice in the last 25 or 30 years, and it shocked me that she was looking at it. But you never know, and so doing a live stream broadcast is really a kind of a fun thing. It's kind of a grab bag because you don't know who's watching. And good morning, Jimi. I hope you're doing good, brother. I hope to see you, Jimi Sewell, in Kerrville, Texas sometime soon, because we got to talk, all right? Anyway, you never know who's watching, and even if no one's watching, you got to do the exercise. And if you're trying to work out, what is it? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That is... what's that guy's name? It'll come to me. But he's a famous guy. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about private victories before public victories. And so you have to win in private first, all right? And it doesn't matter if someone's watching your progress or not. It really doesn't. And that's why I turned this thing on. There may be nobody watching out there, but I don't care. I have to do it because it helps me refine myself. It helps openly expose my flaws and weaknesses. And I can go back and look at these things and see. My friend Colton, who I mentioned before, my buddy who wants to be not a Navy SEAL but an airman, he came over. He gave me all this homework that I'm supposed to do on this live stream, and he was watching, and he said one of the things that impressed him was, and I didn't know this because I haven't watched much of my own stuff, but he watched, and what he did was real interesting. He went on my live stream body of work, and he looked at the first one. No, he looked at the last one, which was about number 70. Then he went back to the first and second and third ones, and he looked at the progress, and he said what impressed me was I saw progress. Stephen Covey. Thank you, Jimi. I appreciate that. Stephen Covey of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's it. He talks about private victories and public victories, and you've got to develop yourself. David Goggins wrote this amazing book, and again, I'll say, get the audio version of David Goggins' book called Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me. Get the audio and listen to it while you're in the car. It will kick your ass. Just listening to everything this guy went through, it's tremendously inspiring. He went from a 350-pound, depressed exterminator who drank chocolate shakes like they were water, and was laying around the couch depressed all the time, and he heard some inspiring ad on television about the Navy SEALs, and he went through all these recruiters, and they told him he was crazy, and they wouldn't get him. And he found one recruiter that actually got him in and said, okay, you got to lose 100 pounds in 3 months, right? That's the first step. If you're even going to set foot in the door here, you got 3 months to lose 100. And by God, he went out and did it. And then he had to go through the different testing and stuff just to get into the thing. And then he failed twice going through Hell Week. And oh my God, just the idea of going through all that stuff. And then they say, no, you didn't make it, but you can go back and do it all again. And he did, and he did it twice again. And on the third round, he finally made it and got his little Trident pen, And it's amazing. It's an amazing book. And he talks about the mental game that you have to play in your head, and that the pain is the pain of doing stuff. Can be overcome with the mental game, and so that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what everybody's trying to do to get somewhere. If you got any kind of vision that's difficult, and or if you're not satisfied with your day-to-day life and you want something different, and you know that there's something out there, then you have to get past this mental game that David Goggins is talking about, and get to the next level. He calls it the next evolution. When you get to the next evolution, when you pass a certain type of training and you go on to the next type of training, you've completed another evolution. You have, here's an interesting concept that is your life going in a circle, or is your life going in a spiral? Right? Both of them go round and round, but going in a spiral is different, because each revolution you have to go up a notch. All right, each revolution of a spiral. Picture a spiral staircase. It goes up. It doesn't just sit on the ground and go round and round. And many people, hey, don't look now. But many people's life are just going in a circle. All right, they're just going in a circle, and even though they sort of daydream about a better life, they do nothing to try to achieve the next evolution and the next that goes up. And I'll tell you another thing too, and it's what I talk about all the time: raising the vibration. Think about a spiral as raising, incrementally raising your own vibration. Because if you have a goal and you're in some dead-end job that you don't like, but you got to do it because it pays the bills, and you don't know what to do about that. Well, you do one small thing every day toward that vision. And especially if you do it in the morning like I do, I get to go through my whole day thinking, I got a little closer because I went and I did a little something towards my goal. Being a broadcaster, being a storyteller, being a public speaker, being something other than, what I'm doing now, something better, something greater, something I want, and something original. That's what I want. Something that's not... I'm going to go back to it again and again. Maybe it's just because this quote is stuck in my head. But your job as a creator is to come up with something original. All right, something original. That's part of the cool thing about live stream. And as your fear level gets less and less about what people are going to think and what the reaction is going to be, you tend to get a little more bold every time in creating something original, creating, not copying, creating. And I got to figure out the music thing, because I've been using other people's music, and I got to figure that out somehow. But anyway, creation of something new. The Johnny Cash movie, Walk the Line. And Johnny Cash is in that interview. I'm going to say this over and over and over and over because it's an important line. Johnny Cash is in Sam Phillips' recording studio, and he's auditioning to try to cut a record, and he's playing some old gospel tune. Him and his two buddies have this little band, and they're playing this thumpy little, gospel music. And Sam Phillips cuts him off and he says, "Hey man, y'all got anything else? I'm sorry, I can't record stuff like that. That don't sell." And he says, "Well, what do you mean? You mean I don't believe in God? And Sam Phillips says to him, "Listen, if you was laying out there in that gutter dying and you had a chance to sing one song, one song that people actually wanted to hear before your dirt, one song that would let God know how you felt about your time here on earth, one song that would sum you up, you telling me that's the song you would sing? That same old Jimmy Davis tune we hear on the radio all day about your peace within and how it's real and how you're going to shout it? Or would you sing something different, something real, something you felt?" Because I'm telling you right now, that's the kind of song that people really want to hear. That's the kind of song that truly saves people. It ain't about believing in God. It's about believing in yourself. And I love that line, It's and to me, it's about believing the God in yourself, because we are made in His image. We have the ability to create original stuff. All right. And if you don't use that unique ability, none of the animals have this. All right. Only humans. They have a God spark within them, made in His image. That means that we have the material. We're not just slaves that run around from Monday to Friday to make a buck and survive and drink beer on the weekends, which ain't all bad. All right. But that is not our purpose. We got just a little bit of time left here, guys. Just a little bit, all right? It's only a few minutes. Daddy says, when he was alive, bless his heart, my dad used to say, it goes by pretty fast. And you look up and a couple of years have gone by just like that. He said, and I didn't believe him when I was a little kid, but Dad used to say, as you get older, time moves along faster. And I thought he was crazy back then. I don't think he's crazy now, all right? Because time does move faster in your mind. And you look up and wow, the kids are grown and they're on their way to doing stuff. And so how much time do you got? Do you want to be my old Sunday school teacher, Zig Ziglar at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Dallas? I went to that class and I can say I actually got to know him a little bit, but he would talk about warehoused America, and he would go and visit these old folks' homes all the time, and what he'd talk about is the people that he would meet. He said that the folks with Alzheimer's are the ones who had lost their marbles. They were some of the happiest ones because they didn't know what was going on. Didn't matter where they were living, they were happy. But the ones who had their mental faculties and their body was broken and they're just waiting for the end, and all they have is time to look back on their lives, to look backward on, where they've been and what they've done and what they haven't done. And he says they're always asking themselves, they're saying to themselves one of two things. They're saying, I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. And most of them, folks, they're not saying I'm glad I did. They're saying I wish I had. All right. And these old folks that are looking back on their lives, they're saying, I wish, and they're not saying, I wish I'd had a better house. I wish I'd made more money. I wish I'd bought that cool car. They're not saying that. It has to do mostly with relationships and personal creativity. I wish I had said, I love you. I wish I had said, I'm sorry. I wish I'd said, I wish I'd written that letter and repaired that broken relationship. I wish I'd reached out more to people around me instead of waiting for them to reach out to me. I wish I'd been proactive. I wish I had written that book. I wish I had tried to make that thing. I wish I had taken a chance and started my own business, and what it might have been, because they're left with the thought, if I had just done a little something, if I had taken a chance, if I had not worried about what the world thought and not been fearful of the reaction, and I'd just gone ahead and followed my own intuition, what might I have accomplished? What kind of relationships might I have had? I might have had a better relationship with my kids or my parents or my whoever. Once death comes, you don't have another chance, whether it's your death or their death, and so when you get to the end of life, you want to be looking back and saying, man, I'm glad I did that. It reminds me of Jimi Buffett, and he went to Key West, Florida. I worked for a TV show called Austin City Limits one time as a production assistant, and it allowed me to get to meet a whole bunch of different stars. And back in 1985, 86 and 87, and I was in Austin, and one of the shows was a reunion between Jimmy Buffett and Jerry Jeff Walker, and they asked him about Margaritaville, and he said, man, I'm glad I wrote that tune, because that was what kicked it off to start the whole bonanza for him. That changed his life completely. And he wrote a bunch of little funky tunes that didn't go anywhere, but he kept chipping, and he didn't know what was going to happen, but he followed his heart. And then he wrote that one that was a breakthrough. And once you get a breakthrough and it starts to give you a little bit of return, it just, throws gasoline on your fire, and you start creating more stuff. But at first, there may be little reward, and ultimately there may be only your personal satisfaction. I've written a book, it's published, it's on Amazon. I won't even tell you what it's called, because it's not really ever gonna make me financial rewards, but I did it, and it led to another rough draft that I've written, and I'm thinking about doing a screenplay that's been in my mind for 30 years. And why haven't I done it? Why haven't I worked harder on it? Because I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and so I think, what the hell? Why should I do that? It's never going to go anywhere. There's a little voice in my head, David Goggins will tell you about. There's a little voice that says, why bother? Why not just be comfortable now and not do it? Because it's never going to go anywhere. But you're never going to know. You're never going to find out unless you try these things. You have to try. You have to try. Remember that word try, all right? And you keep trying and try again. And there's a tremendous satisfaction simply in trying stuff, And we worry so much about what the world may think, what our spouse may think, what our parents or our friends may think. All right? It's one of the worst plagues on this planet, folks, is worrying about what other people think, what their spiritual beliefs are, what their political beliefs are, what their socioeconomic status is, and what will they think of me? It's a disease, all right? And it will get in the way of your creativity every time if you don't do stuff. And they say, hey, what are you doing? You say, oh, I'm writing a book. And they say, you're writing a book? And I believe, and the point of all this Trident thing, the reason I named this today, What's Your Trident, is because I really believe that we are going through an obstacle course here. It may very well be that we actually chose to come into this life. We may have paid a bunch of money or a high price to actually come into this life and go through this obstacle course. I mean, who in their right mind would go through a 6-month advanced Navy SEAL training And, who would do that? Who would sign up to go through that kind of horrible abuse? But the most motivated, the most visionary people to gain that type of status, And I strongly suspect that we entered this life voluntarily, and that we have signed up for this basic training, whatever it is. Maybe some of the people with the greatest hardship on our planet chose to do that. Maybe. Because that gets them through to a higher level. I don't know, but it stands to reason in my book. We came in here to come through this type of training to accomplish something. And I don't believe that you can accomplish it simply by going to a job that you have no passion for and not creating anything. It is your creative ability that is really at the essence of what your time here on earth is all about. And the hardship you go through and the people you have to deal with that abuse you and discourage you and give you all sorts of obstacles, mental, emotional, physical, trying to trip you up like an officer and a gentleman, using methods fair and unfair to trip you up. All right, I believe that it is very much like a basic training exercise for us to get somewhere. And you have to overcome those obstacles, those demons, those enemies all around you. It may very well be that the people that are the worst to you in your life, you actually chose to go through this gauntlet to pass through all that in order to come out on the other side a greater being. A greater, more experienced, more battle-hardened being, so that you can go into the difficult things. I mean, we're only in this thing. Think about basic training for a second. You go into this thing for, a few weeks or months, and then you go into a larger theater of operations. All right, that's what we're about to do here. Once our time limit is up, we're going into a larger theater of operations. All right, and whatever you're learning here, you're going to carry into that. All right, and so and oftentimes when these guys are going through this basic training, that they are saying to themselves, "Why in the hell do I have to go through this? Why?" And why are these people treating me so harshly? They don't talk nicely to me in basic training. And they make it difficult for me until I'm exhausted physically and mentally. Why? Why do I have to go through that? But your commanding officers, they know. They know what theater of operations you are going to enter into. They have been in these type of battle zone areas or challenge areas or different types of jobs that you'll have to perform once you get into that larger theater. And they know if they're not hard on you here, that you're not going to survive, or you're not going to complete your job in that larger theater of operations. You will not succeed if you have not completed this training. All right, and I believe the core of this training is to overcome the obstacles and to bring out your creativity, your originality, your God-given creative self. All right, that is what it's all about. And remember this from Teddy Roosevelt, which I will say over and over and over again: it is not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or how the doers of deeds could have done them better. The credit, my friend, belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no high achievement without error, and who spends himself in a worthy cause, who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasm, and who spends himself in a worthy cause. Spend yourself, all right? And who, in the end, if he succeeds, he knows the value, the triumph of high achievement. And if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. All right? Those cold and timid souls. Those cold and timid souls who live lives of quiet desperation, like Henry David Thoreau says. Those cold and timid souls who say, no, what would they think? Or, no, it'll be too hard. Or, no, I don't want to. I've been there, baby. I've been one of those cold and timid souls, But the more you go to that challenge, that darkest part of the trail, like Joseph Campbell says, that the darkest part of the forest holds the treasure that you seek. All right. If there's a trail blazed into that forest, it's not the right way. All right. You got to blaze your own trail. And it's not easy, and it's scary, and it's dark, and it's the thing that frightens you the most. But that's where the holy grail of your life is located. That's where it is, in the darkest part of the forest. And you've got to go in there, and you've got to face the dragons, and you've got to, do whatever it takes. And that, go get yourself on YouTube. Go pull up Finding Joe. The classic tale of the hero's journey. That's a great little film, about 40 minutes long. And it talks to all these successful people. You got Laird Hamilton, the big wave surfer, and you got all kinds of people that are in that are really amazing. And they talk about these things that they were afraid of, but they went in and faced it, and they overcame it. And then they came into themselves. A light shined in them somehow, and they from overcoming these things, you make it to the next evolution, and there's a light that shines in you from that day forward. All right, and this is the dream. This is the ideal that you place in your mind. You have an ideal, a vision, and it's grand, it's big, it's difficult. Martin Luther King says, don't look at the whole mountain, just take the next step, all right? Just take a step, take another. And after a while, you're going to be halfway up that mountain. And and you may not exactly know where it goes. Do I know where this is going? I don't know where it's going. But it's important to try. Well, when you get something in your mind, and it may be something you used to do when you were a little kid. I always was a storyteller. Ask anybody. All right. In fact, I get in trouble in school because I was always chatting with people and talking to people. And I've talked about Gillian Lind, who is the famous ballet dancer, the choreographer of Cats. And she was a troublemaker in school. She was 6, 7, 8 years old, and she caused so much trouble they made her mom take her to a psychiatrist. And go get the 20-minute YouTube video on Sir Ken Robinson. It's one of the most popular TED Talks on YouTube. And Gillian Lynn, she finds herself in the psychiatrist's office, and her mother's telling the psychiatrist all these bad things that Gillian's been doing, and she can't sit still, and she won't do her homework, and she's disturbing the class, and she's in the psychiatrist's office, And so the psychiatrist, a very wise man, he says, Gillian, your mother and I are going to leave the room right now. But you just stay here and we'll be back. We're going to go talk about all these things. And so Jillian stays there. And as the guy was leaving the office, right before he closed the door, he clicked on the radio on his desk. And then they closed the door, and he walked out with her mother, and they're looking at Gillian Lynn inside the office through a window. And the minute that they left the room, the music was playing. And Gillian was up on her feet, swaying and dancing to the music, all right? And he says to her mother, Mrs. Lind, your daughter's not sick. She's a dancer. Take her to a dance school. And he said, what happened, after that? And she said, it was the most amazing thing. My mother took me to this dance school, and there were people in there who were just like me, people who had to move in order to think, And she couldn't think while she was sitting in a chair. She couldn't think in a classroom and just be quiet. She had to move, and all of a sudden, lots of things started coming to her mind. Her natural creativity was allowed to come forward. I think one of the most horrible things about our education system in this country and in the Western world for sure is that we try to cram all these kids with all this creativity and excitement into a little classroom. And we don't identify what their natural gifting is. We just try to shove that left brain logical stuff into them from an early age. We're just, ladling this shit into their mind when really they want to create something. All right. They have natural giftings that are not nurtured. And so they're told from an early age that, the ones who don't think that way, they're told that they're bad or they're sick or they're wrong or they're learning impaired, and really it's that many of them function from the right brain intuitive much better than from the left brain logical. All right. There's only certain percentage of the humans on this planet that are much more left brain dominant. And so the right brain intuitives, I consider them the most oppressed people on this planet. It's not the women or the black folks. It's the intuitive people who are cast off into a corner. The really intuitive ones are labeled crazy or somehow lesser than. What Sir Ken Robinson says is that we are trying to strip mine a certain commodity out of the left brain: reading, writing, arithmetic, science, mathematics, whatever. And all the rest of them, think about it. Remember back to high school when there were kids that were really good at stuff like wood shop or sports or, crafts. But they weren't all that good at taking tests and, doing all the lessons. The education system is broken, and part of the reason that homeschooling is such a good thing, if you have a competent mom or dad who wants to homeschool, if they're competent, and that's another matter, but they have love for their child, and so they pay attention to their child, and they understand what the child's giftings are, and so they encourage them in that direction and support them in that direction, and it's a beautiful thing. And if you were lucky enough to have that, you're very fortunate. And so anyway, finding your trident, getting your vision, and going through the basic training course of your life, it's not an easy thing, and I know about it. But I found myself being just a real estate broker and fighting with people all the time, every waking hour, and doing that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week doesn't work for me. All right, that's why I don't do that anymore. I only do it a portion of my time. The rest of my time is spent doing other creative things and endeavors that I like. I was out of balance, all right? And that's one thing to look at. If you're constantly just pursuing money, doing something for which you really don't have much passion, something that you don't look forward to going to every day, something that makes you tired, makes you think that Monday is a bad day and Friday is a good day. If that's you, then it's like they say in that Star Wars movie, you need to go home and rethink your life. People get hooked on the money, but it's that God spark within them, that passion, that creativity, that original thing. Is what they'd really like to be. And there are counselors all over the place that counsel these rich guys like doctors, lawyers, engineers, and they're depressed and they're taking anxiety medication and stuff like that. They drink too much. They chase women. They're not they're not balanced because they haven't found that which they have passion for. And so as it always happens, here we're rolling up to the 6 o'clock hour. And God, I love you. I love you. And whatever I can do to pour out my heart and soul, even if I look ridiculous, even if I get it wrong, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to keep doing it because I love it and I love you. And I love you enough to try to give you the genuine truth, that my authentic self, whatever that may be. It's full of flaws, it's full of mistakes, but I'm going to say it however it comes to me. And as I get better at painting these pictures, it feels more comfortable. And I keep thinking I'm going to run out of stuff to say, but you know what? I'm not going to. Because there's always something else, always something more, always something that comes to my attention. It's just like someone who paints pictures for real. There's always another picture to paint. And I love the process of painting these, of telling stories. I love you. I love you, Eddie, my brother. God, I love you. You know, he's one of my biggest encouragers. There he is. This is the way it comes to me, and I'm going to give it to you just that way because I love you. And, I got to keep moving forward. And so I'm going to redouble my efforts. This was the 75th hour, so I've come 3/4 to my goal today. This is the 75th hour that I've completed. I'm going to 100, and after that, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. But the reason I'm doing it mostly is because I believe if I do this 100 times, it'll change me. And it will lead into the next evolution of the spiral. And think about this today. Take home this. Are you living your life in a circle? Or are you living your life in a spiral? And the spiral, you got to go up a notch every time it goes around. And in that way, you raise your own vibration and raise the vibration of the collective, which will lead us to a place of higher vibration, a Christ consciousness, a second coming of the Christ consciousness that I believe was here long ago, and our ancestors who could build pyramids and do all sorts of marvelous things. I believe that they had this higher consciousness, and that is why it's called the second coming. All right, and we're almost there. That's what I truly believe. That awareness is coming up and up, and I'm doing my little part, whatever I can do. So I love you. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day. And I'm going to see you. Today's Friday, so I'll see you on Monday. I promise I'll be back. I love you. Daniel, I love you out there. Monica, love you guys. Donnie, I'm well, Donnie.